Hello, this is Renee reading for you the New Bedford Light on this Thursday, June 19th, which is actually Juneteenth. The first story is the New Bedford High School students protest school board's lack of support for immigrants. This story is by Crystal Yormick and Kevin Andrade, and it is from today. New Bedford. More than 100 students walked out of New Bedford High School Wednesday to protest the school committee's failure to pass a resolution that they say would afford more protections and support to immigrant students. Students demonstrated against the school board in response to a 4-3 vote at the June 9th school committee meeting to table a resolution that would have publicly affirmed the district's commitment to follow the guidance of Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell in the event that U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents enter city schools. The guidance from the AG's office affirms, among other things, that schools are prohibited from sharing a student's personally identifiable information with ICE agents, collecting information on immigration status or nation of birth, and allowing ICE to speak with a student without a signed judicial warrant. Mayor John Mitchell and several other committee members voiced concerns at the June 9th meeting that the resolution had not been reviewed by legal counsel before passing on the bill. "I'm not going to vote for anything that has not been reviewed by counsel," Mitchell said at the meeting. Member Ross Grace, Jr. said that though he supported the spirit of the resolution, he has some reservations about its language. "I'm fully behind doing anything that protects all of our children, and I'm willing to be at the front line," Grace said at the meeting. "I do have an issue with the language." New Bedford High Principal Joyce Cardoza said that the school district has made all attempts to protect students within our purview. This includes not releasing students' data or information and not permitting entry into the building. The school department aligns with the same thing that the students are asking for, Cardoza said. "I don't think tabling it changes what we have been committed to doing, which is ensuring that all of our students are protected in the way that we can." The walkout began at noon when students left the Philip Bronspiegel Memorial Auditorium and gathered in front of the school before flocking to Hathaway Boulevard to hold signs. The signs read, "No one is illegal on Stolen Island," or "Protect Our Future," and "Immigrants Make America Great." Frederica Reese-Friere, co-leader of the student-led walkout, said it is heartbreaking that the resolution has not yet been passed. "This is something that needs to be passed," Freire said. "We need to educate our students. We need to educate our students even if they're not immigrants, because ICE is going after anyone who looks different. Everyone needs to be educated because education is safety." Jaden Allen, another co-leader, said he hopes the mayor rethinks his decision to table the resolution and touches into his humanity for the next meeting. "My mom came here on a visa, and she overstayed it, but now she's a citizen. She pays taxes," Allen said. "I'm kind of thinking like now if that was today, then she would have been deported. So I feel like I kind of got to stand up for all the families that this happened to." Several students spoke, calling out what they described as attacks on diversity and the targeting of kids. "We run this district. This is not their district," one student said to the crowd. Former Student Council Chair Elliot Talley said this is a very appropriate time for a walkout. He cited his past attempts to push for student representatives to be allowed to vote on the school committee as another initiative that was tabled twice before the committee just let it die. They've had months now, and they're continuing to kick the can down the road, Talley said. They're tabling these resolutions, but you can't table what's happening to students. The protest comes as New Bedford faces a wave of ICE-related arrests. As of June 18th, the Light has confirmed 31, mostly male, detainees, largely from Guatemala. The operations have created a climate of fear, according to some students. Freire and Talley said they noticed a drop in attendance since President Donald Trump took office on January 20th, and immigrant arrests in the New Bedford area ensued. The school is full of optimism, Talley said, but I will also say these kinds of actions, especially with allowing ICE to come into schools, has made students actually not want to come to school. Although there have been no instances of ICE raids at New Bedford High, Talley referred to raids in students' houses, graduations in other states, and the student arrest in Milford on May 31st as examples for the drop in student attendance. Allen, one of the leaders, said that although there has been uncertainty for some people, the atmosphere has also created a community, another thought echoed by Talley. We're all fighting for a common cause, and we're all fighting for something bigger than ourselves, which this student body needs to do, Talley said. They need to get involved with something bigger than themselves and to see them out here doing the work because they're all so angry is wonderful. One NBHS student interviewed by The Light after her father was detained in May said she noticed much lower attendance sometime around February. There was a day when half my classmates didn't go to school, she recalled. I was really confused and weirded out and got really nervous. In March, a violent operation targeting a home on Vial Street led to the detention and eventual deportation of Guatemalan nationals Miguel Ordóñez Socop and Jose Antonio Garcia. Their removal left behind 4 teenagers to fend for themselves. Activists said they had to work hard over the following days to get families to return their children to school. The fallout from the raid led to the first protest against ICE in the city outside City Hall on March 29th. There, New Bedford Public School Superintendent Andrew O'Leary called on the Trump administration to restore a sensitive locations policy to ensure students felt safe to go to school regardless of immigration status. On March 21st, my sons woke up safe and warm and went to school, O'Leary said on March 29th. Later that day, I learned that some of our students woke up to terror. We must demand the restoration of the Sensitive Locations Memorandum, he said. Our schools, our hospitals, our students must remain safe. Student leaders said the school administration and teachers have been supportive of the student protest. Talley said as long as students have a school ID, they will be allowed to return back inside the building. I feel like our teachers really have our backs, Freire said. Cardoza said students are responsible for any work they miss from walking out, but there is no punishment for participating students and described students exercising their right to protest as powerful. It's important that students understand what their rights are, that their voices are heard, and that they do it safely and peacefully, Cardoza said. So therefore, I'll support that as long as you know it's in support of something that benefits all students in a community. The school committee will reconsider the resolution at its next meeting on August 11th. The last day of this school year for New Bedford High is Friday, June 20th. Classes for the 25-26 school year will begin August 27th. In the meantime, Freire said that she hopes the walkout puts enough pressure on the school committee to pass the resolution. I hope they see that enough people care, that students are speaking up for their peers and for themselves, and that they will pass this, Freire said. The next story is, after the ICE arrests, what happens to the families? Even though immigration laws are not written to target men, the way that these laws are enforced tends to be highly gendered and highly racialized. And that is by political scientist Heather Silber Mohammed. And the story is by Kevin G. Andrade, New Bedford. Federal agents appear to be targeting mostly male breadwinners as part of a plan to encourage immigrants to leave the U.S., according to community advocates and experts. Experts say that this has been the pattern, though they hesitate to call it an explicit strategy. As of Friday, June 13th, the latest data tracked by The Light shows that 30 immigrants have been detained in operations in New Bedford and its environment since President Donald Trump took office on January 20th. All but one of those arrested have been men. What is happening here in New Bedford is that they are targeting families, breadwinners, said Ondine Galvez-Sniffen, an immigration attorney, during a chat on immigration operations in the city hosted last week by The Light. They've used wellness checks as an excuse to pick up people as well. They're not going after the criminals, she continued. They're going after people like you and me who are just trying to make a living and provide for their families. In many cases, excuse me, the men were the main source of income, leaving women to stretch their now single incomes to provide for themselves and their children. Julia, an indigenous Guatemalan woman with 4 children, is one of those women. Her husband, Miguel Túñez Perez, 43, was taken into custody by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement on March 11th during a check-in at the ICE field office in Burlington, and he was deported to Guatemala in early May. She said in Quiche, through a Spanish interpreter, that she is now 3 months behind in rent, $3,000 in debt, and facing eviction. Her $15 hourly wage, a total of $600 a week before taxes, cannot stretch to pay for both food and a home. I don't know if I can even stay here anymore, said Julia, who asked that only her first name be used due to fears around immigration status. My children are residents, so the 2 oldest will stay. But right now we're thinking I may have to go back to Guatemala with the youngest 2. We're thinking she'll come in 8 or 9 months, Perez, her husband, told The Light in Spanish in a phone call from Guatemala. I would like to return to the U.S. soon to help out, but that's not possible now. He added they had some savings, but those were eaten up by the $5,000 in fees they paid to lawyers in Massachusetts and Texas during the approximately 1 month that he was held in at least 5 different detention centers. I earned $5 a day, he said, referring to his current work as a farmer on a family plot with his mother in Guatemala. I wish I could help, but what can I do? It saddens me, and the situation really hurts. Workers at the Community Economic Development Center, or the CEDC, of southeastern Massachusetts said Julia's predicament is a strong example of the phenomenon. We've seen so many cases like hers, said Lucia Mateo, Community Outreach Coordinator at the CEDC, and it's so much worse now, though. Whether or not the federal government is intentionally targeting men in its immigration enforcement operations, experts say they see a pattern. Even though immigration laws are not written to target men, the way that these laws are enforced tends to be highly gendered and highly racialized, said Heather Silber Mohammed, a political scientist focused on immigration policy and Latino politics at Clark University. She referred to the Light to a study published in the academic journal Latino Studies in 2013 that shows the trend toward targeting men over women in immigration enforcement that is relatively recent and the result of social and economic trends. The study argues that the shifting economy from production-based to service-based markedly changed work opportunities for immigrant men who were once recruited to fill expanding labor needs in the U.S. The study suggests that a labor market that increasingly relies on service jobs and offers diminishing numbers of construction and manufacturing jobs deems male immigrants disposable and redundant. The study also argues that social changes, immigration law, the war on terror, law enforcement's racial profiling of Latino men, and the male joblessness crisis in the U.S. during the Great Recession have all produced this deportation crisis. Another study, published in American Behavioral Scientist in 2019, points to the 287G program, which empowers local and regional police to act as immigration enforcement officers, as an example of profiling Latinos for low-level driving offenses. Let's call this what it is, said Sniffen, referring to New Bedford specifically. It's racial profiling. Of the 30 New Bedford immigrants detained since January 20th, 19 are from Guatemala, 1 is from Ecuador, another from Mexico, and the only woman, Yuri Melissa Agriano Romero, is from Honduras. Only 2, Ruri Muras from Portugal and an unidentified Haitian man, were confirmed as not from Central or South America, and the rest are unknown. Marlene Cerritos, co-director of Mujeres Victoriosas, a local nonprofit focused on empowering women and supporting families affected by ICE operations, said she also sees a pattern. Some of the folks that have been detained were males that have jobs in construction, landscaping, jobs that tend to be higher paid and male-dominated, Cerritos said. We saw that on Sawyer Street, where folks had their contractor uniforms on. Although construction jobs on the whole are fewer, Cerritos speculated that it's a job sector authorities have set their sights on. We've seen a lot of that, she said. New Bedford is not unique. We've seen that in Chelsea and other areas with large immigrant populations. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons did not acknowledge a question from the Light during a press conference in Boston on June 2 about whether agents were targeting men to pressure families to leave of their own accord. ICE Boston Field Office Communications Director James Covington did not respond to the same question at the conference or in a follow-up email. Community activists say that stories such as Julia's have become common in recent months as immigration enforcement operations have made their mark in New Bedford. One activist said he has seen the gender dynamics play out on raids in his community. If there are, for instance, women who say they have kids at home, federal agents will release them and take the others, said Diego Lowe, director of the Metro West Worker Center, a Framingham-based organization that advocates for immigrant and labor rights. I was in Milford the other day, and I saw 2 vans going to the same construction site, and from that they took 10 people, Lowe added. I don't know the explanation of the gender disparity, but my suspicion is these are the easiest targets. The disparity in work and earning power is partly due to patterns of immigration to the U.S. from Central American nations, according to Lisa Maya Nauer, an anthropologist at the University of Mass, Dartmouth. She said those patterns perpetuate themselves once families are settled in the U.S. Most of the women are obviously working, said Nauer, who also volunteers with the Centro Comunitario de Trabajadores. People come to the U.S. not to keep house, but to work. One partner, usually the man, comes first, works, and then sends for the other, she continued. Taking them leaves women with half the family income, perhaps more, all of a sudden gone. Local immigration advocates such as Corinne Williams, director of the CEDC, said New Bedford immigrants have been feeling the stress of the situation, even if they're not the ones being detained. Everyone is kind of feeling the impact of what's going on, she said. Even if they're not at risk, they're feeling the stress of the current environment. Activists have noted physical and mental changes in many of the families left behind. Some have begun to exhibit extreme paranoia, fearing that the ICE agent is on every street corner ready to take them away. Sniffen, the immigration attorney, said one of her clients started to experience intense migraines after her husband was detained. Alicia Lopez, co-director of Mujeres Victoriosas, said many children do not want to go to school because they're afraid of not seeing their parents again. One of the teenagers present for a violent ICE raid in March, in which agents used a battering ram to enter his home on Vial Street, told The Light that now he can't sleep unless the lights are on in his room and there's a family member present. I'm worried they come back, he said. Nauer contrasted current trends with the massive Michael Bianco raid in 2007, in which 361 immigrants were arrested. She said the strategy for mass deportation under the Trump administration appears to be more piecemeal. It's a strategy of picking people up one by one or two by two, Nauer said. Except for the car wash, it's different from workplace raids. It's more violent in some ways to take people in isolation. Williams said the current operations have created a sense of omnipresent fear within the community. She added that there's an element of public relations to the targeting of men as well. It's all about the optics and theatrics of it all, she said. An arrested woman with a small child at home might attract more public sympathy than a man, she suggested. Lopez of Mujeres Victoriosas said during the Lights chat that the language used by the administration, like that at ICE's press conference in Boston, is an attempt to paint all immigrants as a threat. They're even talking about everyone in our community being a criminal when we know we're not, she said. They're using languages to confuse community members and to divide. The administration's language about immigrants fits a paradigm shift that began with the 2002 Homeland Security Act, according to the Latino Studies article. The act, written and passed in a climate of fear after the 9/11 attacks, abolished the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service and created the Department of Homeland Security. It placed two new agencies, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and ICE, under DHS to carry out immigration law. The act refocused immigration policy on national security and the border rather than labor and the interior, according to the Latino Studies article. In that context, men have become easier targets because society views them as more threatening, regardless of their character. While immigration enforcement may have increased significantly over the last few months, the broad trends in terms of who is targeted are not new, Mohammed said. These trends are also consistent with Trump's language from his first term about bad hombres. According to the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, a child who suffers a traumatic event, such as a threat to the physical security of a loved one, can often manifest physical symptoms. Marilu Domingo Ortiz, 28, said her son, Abidal, lost his appetite shortly after federal agents seized his father in a violent enforcement operation on Talman Street in April. He was just eating a little, Ortiz said, and said he would start eating again when his dad came home. He finally began to calm down 2 weeks later when Ortiz brought him to visit Mendez at the detention center in Dover, New Hampshire. Victor Emilio Murillo Avila and Yuri Melissa Agrigano Romano are a couple from Honduras with 3 children, ages 3, 5, and 13. Federal agents took Romano into custody on June 3rd during an immigration check-in. On June 10, ICE requested permission from Judge Brian E. Murphy of U.S. District Court, Massachusetts, to move Romero from the ICE field office in Burlington to Delaney Hall, an immigrant detention center in Newark, New Jersey, according to court documents obtained by The Light. But an escape on June 12th by 4 immigrant detainees in protest of poor conditions led Delaney Hall to stop accepting new detainees. On June 13th, ICE informed the judge and Romero's lawyer, Johanna Golding, that it intended to move her to the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility in South Burlington, Vermont, and Murphy granted permission for the move. I don't know why they took her instead of me, Murillo Avila said in Spanish. I suspect that maybe it's because they thought I had no family support in the area, so I'd just leave. Murillo Avila told The Light his children, the youngest of whom is a U.S. citizen by birth, have been inconsolable since then. He said he has to sleep by their side so they stop crying enough to fall asleep. A child needs their mother, Murillo Avila said. The teenagers who experienced the violent ICE operation at their Vial Street home have had to learn to organize themselves. Leticia, the oldest of the teenagers left behind after agents took Miguel Ordóñez Socop and Jose Antonio Garcia from their home, was thrust into the position of head of the household. The 19-year-old now has the responsibility of making sure the two minors, a brother and a cousin, still get to school and to other appointments. I tell him, look, go to school, keep studying, okay? Because it's good for you, she said. Even if he's not my brother, I still give him the same advice I give my own siblings. Don't do bad things. Do things the right way. Letitia was looking for work when the raid happened. Since then, she's found part-time employment at a fish house processing seafood, but it's not enough to keep the home afloat. Now I tell myself, whatever job it is, morning or night, as long as it's work, I'll take it, she told The Light several months after the raid. Though immigrants say they will stay, advocates say they've definitely noticed people starting to throw up their hands. Regardless of gender, people are noticing, Williams said. The shock and awe that they advertised, it's having a ripple effect, and some people are now starting to ask, should we go? People like Julia. To tell the truth, I'm very worried now because of the housing situation, Julia said. This whole situation saddens me, especially when I think about the president. Does he not see that we're hard workers? Why does he treat us like that? Does he not see that I have children to feed, she continued, and how hard I struggle to support them? Then she inhaled deeply and sighed. I don't even know anymore if I want to stay. This has been Renee reading for you the New Bedford Light. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.